All right, everybody, this is the Your Little Castle show, and good fortune, luck, just being that guy that people notice, but then it's like, who is this guy? What's he doing around here? And maybe it's all of the above. You're like, what? But you had been familiar with the Cardinal Cowboy a little bit, is that right, Tom?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, mostly from social media, I think.
Oh, really?
And seeing your stuff out and about, and Facebook, Instagram, those kind of places.
Those are fun. Yeah, I do a lot of that, and I do it all myself. But I'm working hard to try to impact them. Now you guys know the story. How much of that story did you know? We did like the 7-minute version about why I do all this.
Well, we had talked a few months back, and you told me some of the issues that you had as a younger person, health-wise and so forth, and
hit by a drunk driver and was in a coma.
In a coma, and it's an amazing recovery that you've made, obviously. And no, I knew some of that, but I thank you for the 7-minute version. That was good.
Yeah, and like I said, I can go on for hours. People ask me to speak at other locations and come to events and pay me to do that. But I just took at certain points in my fun, I like to highlight the leaders in the community. They're just leaders, not business people necessarily, but you're a business guy. I guess you got a podcast. We're going to talk about that too.
A little bit, yeah.
And so, welcome everyone to the Your Little Castle show. Tom Calhoun, the St. Louis Blues, it was going to come up on its own, I skipped it. The St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends podcast, make some noise. He is also the PA announcer for a little team called the St. Louis Blues.
Been doing that for quite a while now. Yeah, I started in 1987, Carter, and depending on when people actually see this, I will have done 1,700 consecutive games for the St. Louis Blues without missing one. And that's my claim to fame, I think. If I'm famous for anything, it's for showing up at every Blues game since I started in 1987.
Holy manoli, everybody. So do the math on what that is, but that's crazy. That's consistency. That's what we talk about.
I've been really lucky with health, and that other issues, family events and things like that haven't gotten in the way. Funerals, weddings, and all that.
Sure. You might have had to do some maneuvering to make that happen.
Yeah, but
jump on a late night flight.
For the most part, my wife Barb and my sons have been understanding of me being away that much in the evenings to be at hockey games. And as long as the Blues continue to like the work that I do, I'll keep showing up.
Well, they obviously like your work, and you've been doing it for so long. I mean, other organizations, I think the Cardinals are fairly consistent with who they get on and keep around, but some of those organizations, like every 3 years, there's a new announcer, depending on who you're talking about.
Well, this kind of work traditionally will not be a full-time income for someone. You generally have to have a second or a primary job, and then you do the public address announcing for these games as a second income. And so, people move on. And luckily, I've been able to, over time, consider this a second income. Sometimes when I've been on a primary job, it's become the number one income, but it's been a great thing for me, and I've enjoyed being at the games, meeting the people in the hockey community, and most of those people are just great to be around, and so it's been a joy.
Well, I appreciate you just taking the time to allow a little guy like me come on. You're legendary.
You're not a little guy.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I could tell you, people always be humble, right? But I had a gal on. She was a Blues girl actually, and she ends up being a guy I went to high school's daughter. And I pull her up here, and we're sitting here chatting, and I'm like, "You've just blown it out of the water. You've got 300,000 followers." And she looks at me and she says, "Cowboy, you're the OG, the original social media influencer." I'm like, "Well, I got in it too early apparently and I could go in through all of whatever's happened. I still got a lot of followers. If you add them all up, it's kind of a crazy number. That's hard to imagine, but especially times when something was whatever, and then got to start that one over or whatever. But it's just kind of a fun place we're at in this planet right now, because technology and social media, and that's where you're doing your own podcast now.
Yeah,
so you want to talk about that?
Sure. I teach radio broadcasting and podcasting at Southwestern Illinois College, and all of my students for the last number of years have said, "So where's your podcast? What's going on with that? Where can we see it or where can we hear it?" And I said, "Well, I haven't started one yet." So I was kind of shamed into doing something, but really, honestly, the idea came up to do one featuring the legends of blues hockey and tell their stories. As the blues fan base gets younger and a lot of us who've been around for a while get older, I thought it was important to tell the stories of some of the people from the 20th century and early 21st century who have become famous as part of the blues family. And so my first podcast is with Kelly Chase, and Keith Kachuk's coming up soon, and we'll have Brett Hall and a lot of the big name people. And we don't want their stories to go away. We want them to be part of St. Louis's conscience. And so, that's the whole idea behind the podcast. And if there's companies out there that would like to be part of that and sponsor some of it, we're certainly willing to take their calls.
Sure. Well, and who wouldn't want to be associated with what you've built over 38 years and the reputation you've got and how well you've influenced our community with positiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the kind of things you want to be associated with, and that's what I see everything you do. So.
Well, I've always had Stan Musial as my hero from way back in the day when I was a kid. And the way he lived his life and the way he presented himself was kind of a pattern for me. And I think if you can be good to people and say good things about people and try to accommodate their wishes in any way that you have the chance to, I think you should. And so being a good person has paid off, I think, for me in the longevity I've had with the blues, and I've had a good marriage and haven't had too many fights there, so that's still going on, and I've tried to live a life like Stan would have. And it's paid off, I think. That's
a great role model. I understand that. I have been fortunate to work with somebody very high up with the Cardinals, and they've connected me with a number of things. And this is that I kind of keep private. But a lot of people see me. We interviewed Brian Schwarzy, who is Stan Musial's grandson.
Right.
And Brian and I become friends, and that's a great connection. But this friend, I helped her son. I didn't realize who I was helping when he'd been through a coma. In a bad situation. I'm at a charity event, and I don't realize who that lady was, but I'd like to help her son. Come to find out, the reason we were in Busch Stadium in the Champions Club is because of the association she has with them, that she could make that happen. And I don't even know how that'll happen, but maybe that's whatever. But they said, you know what, you want to help along those lines. I think you're right. This is a great platform if you do more of this. That's what we're trying to share, some of our secrets, some of our trademark attributes, things we try to do in the community. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, I'd like to help that lady. I've been through a coma. I came through it. I know what that takes. There's very few people I could imagine to be standing here and say I can help that person. But if I don't, I feel like I'm kind of a jerk. And they said, you know who that lady is? And I won't say who she was. I'm like, oh, well, I still like, they go, no, we told him what you're about. You want to work with him? And I've helped him. A year later, the guy who was the one who got in with the guys who made this all happen back in 1988 came to me and said, Carter, I'm like, yes, sir, Mr. I won't say his name, but he goes, I got to talk to you. You're the only person that's been able to get through to my grandson. Doctors and experts and all. So I'm like, whoa. We got a series of those that happen now. We're going to do a whole show about that. But to your point, do those things because it helps you get along in life also. Because you help other people, it tends to come around.
I think so. And, I'd like to see more people kind of take that approach and see where it all takes us. There's so much acrimony in the world these days, and people seem to be on one side of the fence or the other, and not on the fence, so they could go either way. But
no, I had a discussion yesterday. We're getting a little bit off, but it's tied into this. And I said, some people think I'm very much on this side. Some people think I'm very much on that side. I just see the problems with both of them and how they both should be working together, because these guys are saying we need help, and these guys are saying we know how to do everything. Yeah. Well, then why don't you guys help them, and then we'll all work together, and this will be good for everybody.
Sure.
And I can't seem to get everybody to do that. I'm not in control as much as I think I am yet, but
Well, the only way you have control over that is of yourself, I think, and hopefully it becomes an example for others.
right. I want to make a mention here, and we've gone much further into the show than I normally, because I want to put your stuff on the walls here. But take a look. It was Allison Bowles. I was drawing a blank, but she was on the show. She's up to 335,000 followers.
Whoa.
And I'll hold this up as close to the camera as I have to put, but you can look her up, Allison K. Bowles. Scott Bowles is her dad. He and I went to high school together. I'll never forget seeing him at the Cardinal game. I'm like, Scott. And then I see this beautiful young lady. I'm like, oh, it's your daughter. I get it. Gotta be nice. Whoa. Anyway, she's a beautiful girl. She was a blues girl. They clean the ice up between.
It's happening a lot with me with granddaughters of my friends I went to school with now.
And she's awesome. She was on the show. Great. Check out Allison Bowles. Let's go in here. Ladies and gentlemen, this show would not happen if not for the sponsors that appreciate what we're doing here. And Brooke said to me, wow, it's going great. You're doing really good. We need to do more to help you with this. And I'm like, we made an agreement. We're good. But let's get this done and help people. But on the walls, you can see, have I got the right camera up for that? Yes, I moved that around while we were talking or zooming up a little bit. I had the camera up to here. But Carol House Furniture, because you like nice things, where? In your little castle. Brooke like that, right?
There you go.
That's the name of the show. I deliberately changed it from Cardinal Cowboy Show because I don't want to be the host forever. Some people think, oh, Cardinal Cowboy wants to. No.
Folks, you've heard of a one-man band? This guy is a one-man production house right here.
Well, I'm a computer nerd. I thank my parents for, in case the baseball career didn't work out, you're going to summer classes for computers.
Yeah.
And the rest kind of elevated
Took
from
off
there.
From there, huh?
And I just told you, did I tell that story about my baseball coach? I didn't think I'd tell him on camera. I'll tell it real quick. Baseball coach just finally saw him from college last weekend. Went to Chicago. Girlfriend wanted to go up there for Bears, Packers. Met with him. He says, I had one other shortstop that was as good as you needed to be to make it to the big league level. He actually got to Double-A and then tore his hamstrings. And I said, how did I compare to him? He said, at your age, when I was looking at you, 15, 16, 17, whatever, it's on tape, I'm going to put it out there, you were better than him. I'm like, ugh. I should have been a pro ball player, but God had a different plan, right? And you have to come back from those kinds of things and say, I can be upset. And he said it to me, that one we all know. Life gives you lemons.
You make lemonade.
There you go.
Yeah. And I started out to be Jack Buck. And
okay.
I
That's
actually
a good person to emulate.
Actually got to work with Jack for a while at KMOX back in the day. And the first day I worked at KMOX as an intern, I walked into the newsroom, and Jack was going through some news copy in the newsroom, and I stood there next to him thinking, I'm standing next to Jack Buck. And I didn't say anything, and he didn't say anything for a long time. And eventually he looked over at me and said, all right, well, you going to introduce yourself or what? And I said, well, Mr. Buck, I'm Tom Calhoun. I'm the new intern from SIU Edwardsville, and he was so nice and so gracious. You know, he had that Stan Musial approach to life, I think, too, and talked to me for 20, 25 minutes on my very first day and asked me about my goals and what I wanted to do with my career and my family and all this kind of stuff. Jack was a great guy.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of guys that really, I get.
I didn't turn out to be Jack Buck, but I don't regret the direction that things went for
Well,
me.
I mean,
So,
and tell me if the equivalent, is it the U-Man for the Cardinals?
yeah, John Hewlett.
John
yeah.
Hewlett?
Mhm.
And I ran into him recently, and I said, hey, I'd like to have you on, because he called me out one time as at a charity event. And he goes, now batting for the St. Louis Cardinals, Cardinal Cowboy. And we were at Busch Stadium for this. It was kind of being fun. I'm like, he knows who I am? But anyway, but the U-Man, we're going to get a hold of him. And I ran into him. I said, no, you got it. He's like, he told me he'd definitely be able to be on. So he's next on the list. You got to be first.
He's a friend. And, you know, he, a little while ago, a couple of years back, went into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. And I was working with the Hall at the time and, you know, kind of greased the path a little bit for that. So, yeah, he's a great guy. And he's been doing, I think, the Cardinals pretty close to the same length of time that I've been doing the Blues.
Yeah, no, he does a lot of cool stuff. He's got the chemistry outfit. And he shares a little bit, not just about baseball, but
Right.
about life and some things outside of the Cardinal games themselves. I've got friends that want me to do some work that we might get the Cardinals to do when it rains or whatever, and we'll talk about that. And they've got connections to make that happen. But bottom line, keep working, do hard work, and things pay off, right? And
Sure. Yeah, that's the way it works. You get out of life what you put into it.
absolutely. And if you cry all the time about what didn't happen, you're actually going backwards because you're wasting your time not being productive with something that you could have been being productive.
Yeah.
We talk about that. Well, here's the websites and everything right there. We'll talk about this here. The PA guy Tom. You can see that on our descriptor here, I believe. There it is. PAguide.tom at PAguideTom. And is that your Twitter?
That's the Twitter handle, yeah.
Right. And then you always are famous for make some noise tonight.
We say that before every Blues game. We say who the Blues are playing us in. So get ready to make some noise tonight.
There it is. Now, if you don't realize who's sitting here with me, now you do, because that's the voice that we all know every Blues game when they're getting ready to get started and in between and everything you do for
I don't know when the Blues thing started exactly, but that's part of the deal too. Welcome to the ice, yours St. Louis Blues. And I think Steve Templeton on Channel 4 does a little hit during the Blues games, and he even does the Blues thing, as part of the weather update. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The guy who does, "Are you ready to?" I won't even say it now because I might get in trouble. "Are you ready to?" And then that's trademarked. You can't use that to make money unless you pay them or something. But work on that. Maybe you get the Blues to trademark.
Well, Michael Buffer is his name, and he came and actually did the Blues starting lineups back in the early 2000s one night.
Oh,
and
wow.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way at the moment, but it turned out pretty good. He does a nice job, and he's made a lot of money on that that slogan, that saying. Yeah.
Wow, connected. That's awesome. So behind me, like I said, I'm going to put on the wall. Make sure I hit my right buttons here. There's the wall to the right. This is your iHeartRadio St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends podcast. Is that the one?
Yeah, it's on iHeartRadio's podcast site, also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most of the places that people can get their podcasts from, they'll show up on their phone.
Okay. And beyond that, you have a website too. And I'll put that one up now. I'll press the right button. There it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to scroll down for this one. But this talks about the Hockey Legends podcast. Start at the top here, PAGuyTom.com.
Yeah, that's...
and Blues Hockey Legends forwards to that, right?
We'll add some more content to that website over time and make it a little more of a entertaining place to go. But right now, it's just a link to the podcast there. And if for future shows that we do, it says you can see their questions for legends. People can go to the website and ask a question of an upcoming guest. There's a field there where they can submit their...
right, and there it is. I got it. There it is.
Where they can submit their question.
So there you go. Contribute. Help get on the...
Yeah.
Do they get to potentially ask their question on the show?
Yeah, well, we'll ask it for them. I mean, it'll just come to me in text form. But,
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe we'll work it out some way in the future, now that you bring it up, that they could actually hear their voice on the podcast.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that. I'm a techie nerd to a certain extent, doing these things. And there's all kinds
I might need help with that.
I'll definitely help you. That's for sure. With that, let's get down into some of the stuff. I always try to stick to my mom was a drama teacher, right? We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
She was fortunate. We were fortunate to have John Goodman go to Afton High School, and she said, "John, you get the lead role." And the music director said, "He can't sing." And my mom said, "You get the lead role anyway. I'm the director." And so the rest of it, John is. So
your mom was the inspiration for John Goodman's career.
Right? Absolutely, all of his success came from my mom.
Wow.
No, but it was a little thing that she felt great about. I'm not saying that John's awesome. He earned everything on his own and took the leaps. And I talked to his brother. I used to work with his brother, and he said, "Yeah, I helped him out back in the day." And he went to New York, and we see these old commercials from him on McDonald's and stuff. And I'll never forget. I've never told this story on the show before, if I can tell this to everybody. But remember, I'm 15 years old. You're not supposed to go into. Am I going to get in trouble? You're not supposed to go into a rated R movie unless you're accompanied with an adult.
Right.
And I was, which was my mom. But I'm going, why are we going to see Revenge of the Nerds? That was one of John's first movies.
Was it? I didn't know he was in that.
He was the coach.
Oh, okay.
You got beat by a bunch of nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I was like, my sister's 4 years younger than me. She went along too. So but overall, that movie, my mom explained, here's what was going on with those things. I
Yeah.
think we've turned out all right. But that was kind of neat. And that's how far. And then it went to Roseanne
Yeah.
and everything. And then my mom, I shouted out, work hard, do similar things like my mom did. She didn't just walk in and say, I want to be the director at this high school and get this theater that you guys are building named after me that John Goodman came in for. But John Goodman, I said, Mom, do you know John Goodman just got his Hollywood star and he called you out?
No,
And she's
really.
like, what? And I said, I'll go show it to you. It's on YouTube. And she said, send me that. That's kind of neat. And so those are the kinds of little things, everybody. That there's all kinds of people we know that have done things like that. Get to know those people, be nice to them, and they might give you a leg up, right?
Yeah, you get more accomplished. What's the saying? You attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of common sense, but so many people are kind of frustrated with where they are in life, and it's just don't go that route. It's tough. Not everything's going to go your way for sure on this little planet. I hope it's not a coma like I had to go through, but you're going to go through something. And he said, Roseanne, my mom, my sister, or my daughter, my director, and Judy Rethwish. I was like, I'll get that. I'll send you the link right where you can start the video right from that time spot. There's a way to do that. So anyway, those are fun things, and we all are trying to do those kinds of things. The people that are most successful, that's how they get there, right?
Yeah.
By helping other people.
And being nice to the right people. That helps too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's get back into a little bit more about all of what you got going on here. This started for you, like you said, 38 years ago with the St. Blues. How did you get into that position where you were given the opportunity to do this for the Blues?
It was kind of accidental, actually. I was working at KXOK Radio at the time, and in those days, in the mid-'80s, KXOK had gotten the rights to broadcast Blues games on the radio. Up until that time, KMOX had the rights all along, and Dan Kelly and Ron Jacober, I was working with them at KXOK Radio, and one day Ron called me into his office and said, Susie Matthew over at the Blues called and said they're looking for somebody to do the PA announcing for the Blues games. Would you be interested in that? I said, well, maybe. I wasn't really terribly interested, honestly, at the time, because I was more interested in furthering my radio career and play-by-play sports and that sort of thing. He said, well, why don't you go talk to her and see what they've got? So I did. She asked if I would do it as a favor for the rest of the season, 86-87 season, and then at the end of the season they'd find somebody permanent. And I said, okay, well, I can do it as a favor, sure. Well, towards the end of the season, she called me back in the office and said, we really like the way you're doing this. Would you come back again for the next season? And I said, well, not for what I'm being paid. I don't think I can really do that, Susie. And the next thing she said is, the reason I'm still doing it 37 years later, she said, we will make it worth your time. and they did. And I don't make a ton of money out of it.
Now you've got a yacht and a big building. No,
yeah,
but you've done all right.
So. But yeah, it's turned out to be a great thing for me over time, and I thank her for saying those words. It was a good thing.
We talk about this on the show very often too. It's not the money. My mom even said, Mom, things are going, and my dreams could all come true, and then I'll have enough money to pay for a baseball field that's covered, because Midwest we don't get to play baseball during the winter.
That's a neat project.
And then she goes, you remember Cowboy? She said, she doesn't call me Cowboy. She calls me Carter's my real name. It's on my title up here.
Yeah.
But money is not what makes you happy. And I'm like, got to keep that focus. I said, I know, Mom. I realized that because Lord knows, my mom was like, stop doing so much charity work. You got to pay your bills. And she's a teacher. But those are the kinds of things we get to do. And the money's not always the most critical thing. You got to have that to survive on this little planet. But when you get to go out and impact the lives like you get to do, you talked about something, I guess I'd realized that, but you do those little voiceovers for somebody's birthday. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, Cameo.com. I think a lot of people are familiar with that, and since it came along a few years back. And, people go to this website on their phone, and put it in there, and it sends me a notification that somebody's interested in a cameo from me, which turns out to be usually a little 2-minute or so video. Happy birthday, or congratulations on the wedding, congratulations on the new job, etc. Something along that line. I've done a few where I introduce a kid's hockey team or something like that too. So, it's a little bit of money attached to it that they can send my way. And when I first started out, I was donating a lot of that money to charity, and I'm still doing a little of that. But it's kind of a fun thing more than anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, based on what you told me, people are donating.
Yeah.
I'm like, Tom Calhoun's time has got to be like $250 an hour to start, and you're doing it for nothing.
Well, practically nothing. Yeah, it's more of a fun thing for me to do than anything, and way to connect with fans and keep them engaged.
Way to go. That's what we're talking about. I knew it would be a good interview. We're almost out of time for the half hour, but what I'm going to do, which I do periodically, is go ahead and let's just keep rolling.
Okay.
And we'll go over, and I'll figure out a way to cut it down to what I got to put it to, and that part will air on ABC, and it'll air one time. But most people hopefully come back and look at the full version and watch that all on ABC. So
Awesome.
I'll get you out of here by midnight. Is that right?
Midnight? Yeah.
Just joking, Barb. All right, we've got just a couple more minutes here, but we got so much to cover, and we kind of just get into it and miss some of the things I want to get on. What do you think? What is this that led to your success? I mean, how did you end up being at the level? I guess a history in radio, but I mean, I can imagine there's a lot of people that want that job, and they said, "No, we got our guy."
It's all my brilliance and talent that
I understand.
No, really, I think anybody would tell you who has any kind of a position similar to what I have, that a lot of it is being at the right place at the right time. And I happen to be at the right place to be invited to do the Blues PA announcing. I was, sure, I did get an education that led me in the proper direction, and I worked in radio for a number of years before the opportunity with the Blues came along. But, it as I explained before, it sort of fell in my lap. I didn't really seek the job. It happened, and I'm just grateful that it did. And so I would tell people who might be interested in this kind of work that you need to, A, be good at the language, and B, be good at self-promotion, which I never was very good at that, but it's part of the world these days. You have to promote yourself and get yourself out there in front of people so that people know who you are and what you can do. And but the first one is, I tell my students, much more important. Be able to communicate both orally and on your computer or whatever device you're using professionally. There's so much shorthand communication going on in today's world that you will be valuable to companies and people who are interested in communicators if you can communicate professionally. And so I think that's what you should focus on.
All right, so to make it easier for editing purposes, I'm going to say we're going to finish up right now. Stay tuned for the rest of the show. I'm going to edit right here later and put our close in to send it to ABC. So stay tuned for more. Okay, and now we're going to continue on. So I left a little pause there. I'll edit and cut right there. And let's go on with some other things. There's so much more to talk about. Here is your LinkedIn page. And I just kind of had to push you. Come on, let us show this LinkedIn page, because you've got a whole lot of stuff you've done that literally is like, wow, I didn't know he did that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. We're second connections. I just sent you an invite to be my friend. I don't know if you use, but you can't. Everybody's 2 steps away from somebody they know on LinkedIn, right? And so all of the things, I didn't know the Grizzlies, voice actor, general manager, Blue Storm Radio. I'm not sure. That's at is that as a teacher?
That's at SWIC. Yeah. I teach communication classes part-time at Southwestern Illinois College, and part of that arrangement is I keep an eye on the college radio station. It's an internet station, and it's available for students to learn the broadcasting business. And
learn the trade.
So yeah, Blue Storm Radio. Blue Storm is the nickname for the college, and they just applied it to the radio station. And so that's one of the things I do with my time. The Grizzlies, I've been doing PA announcing for the Gateway Grizzlies, located in Sauget, Illinois, for the last, 24 years, since 2003. No, 21 years, I guess. And right now we're kind of looking at the upcoming season in 2025 as my swan song with the Grizzlies, and they're going to do a bobblehead night, I think, and the first night.
Tom Calhoun bobblehead?
Yeah,
bobblehead?
yeah.
Oh, I want to get one of those.
And I think they're coming up with a design for it right now. Kurt Ringkamp, the general manager, is talking about a hockey stick in one hand and a baseball bat in the other, or something,
Okay.
and a microphone fit into it somewhere along the line. So that should be fun, and hopefully a lot of people will come out that night and get their very own Tom Calhoun bobblehead.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't got the Cardinals do that for me. I've got a bobblehead, but it was somebody that sponsors me that wanted one made, kind of a community thing.
Yeah.
And there's people, you can get my little bobblehead if you want to, but man, that's great. They're going to give out thousands of those, right? I think we've sold like 13 or whatever.
Well, yeah, usually there's a couple thousand involved, yeah. So hopefully some folks will come out and buy a premium ticket, I think is how it works, where you buy a ticket to the game and you, for a little extra charge, you get a bobblehead.
Right. No, yeah, the Cardinals are known for that. Like, they generate a lot of attendance because they say, for the price of admission, and I get this item that I would have to buy for $35, I'm going to make money going to the game if I want to turn around and sell. But the Cardinals are great marketers, and they know what they're doing, and it's a great product. Last couple of years have been a little tough, but they'll be back. I'm not so concerned. But lots of good things there in the sports arenas right here in our beautiful city of St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, and it continues to be a sports town. You know, you can't converse with anybody for very long without sports coming up, that's for sure.
Well, I talk to as a consultant for businesses. A lot of people have seen the work that I've done. Some of them don't even realize some of the awesome, cool stuff. But 10 years in Anheuser-Busch and learned a lot there as an IT guy, and then doing the Google stuff. I was one of the top guys in the country for that, and I don't even talk about that publicly. But fun stuff. But this technology stuff, if you don't have a handle on it, boy, your business can go down fast.
Yeah.
And so we work with businesses on that side of the world to do that. We've got on our studio table here. See these little bling blings? I got my Rams. I got the two Chiefs, and this one's a real ring. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually kicked semi-pro football, kicked professionally as an indoor kicker, and got a try with the Rams offered to me back in the day, and kicked a 51-yard field. With these guys, we won the national championship or whatever. So that's kind of neat to have a little ring like that.
You kind of glossed over that. You kicked a 51-yard field goal for somebody?
That was the Dupo Fury. Yes.
Now we're talking. That's my side of the river, Dupo.
Dupo. I was Cahokia, all this football was over on the Illinois side, and it was neat because that was another accomplishment for me after going through a coma to do these things. And literally, I've never told the story to you. I'm not trying to make it. But anyway, the referee came up to me in the next game after I did that. He says, "Were you that kicker that kicked the 51-yarder last week?"
Yeah.
I am friends with Charlie Army and kind of a scout for him.
Yeah.
And Charlie Army used to be the general manager of the
Sure.
St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, right.
And he said, "Would you like a tryout with the St. Louis Rams?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's my email, my Facebook, my Twitter, my parents' phone number, my phone number." Anyway, he goes, and I got a call from the Rams like a week later, and would you like to have a tryout? And what happened was the Rams fired Bobby April because they had the weakest stats regarding their special teams at that point.
He was their special teams coach.
He was a special teams coach. Yeah. At that time, they had a guy by the name of Mike Martz, who I've got to talk to, and he told me some crazy stories about the Super Bowl stuff that I won't talk about here. But he said, they fired Bobby April. He ended up going off to the Buffalo Bills, became the special teams coach of the year again.
Yeah.
And I called the new guy because my coach was Louis Aguiar, and he said, "Sorry, man, you're not on my list." So I never actually got the tryout, but I was offered a tryout. I went to a camp where I finished number 2 out of a bunch of kickers. But all that after a coma, like I said, how many people are capable of doing way more than I am capable of if they just go out and just do it?
Yeah.
And stop complaining about it.
Well, you said several times now that you went through a coma. How long were you actually in a coma?
Well, I don't remember because I was in a coma.
No. Well, makes sense, right?
I get that one every time.
Yeah.
No, they said, "Well, didn't they tell you?" On the 7th day, I rose.
Okay.
I came out of it. There's a guy who did it faster. That's a play on. But bottom line is, these things, when you come out of something like this, their odds of recovery are minimal. We had a guest that came on, a doctor. I didn't realize he was a doctor. He was on the other show, Cowboy Judge. I said, "Well, you need to be on the show." Anyway, before all that discussion, he said, "I may not look like a doctor. I'm retired and just kind of hanging out here at this restaurant." Was next to one of the radio stations I was doing stuff with. And he said, "Do you realize, Cowboy?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "You're 1 out of 50." And he goes, "No, you're 1 out of 100 that have a traumatic brain injury that recover like you have." obviously. And there's
Wow.
still some problems with me. Obviously, there's something wrong with me or whatever.
That explains a lot.
But yeah, but part of it is like I learned to not care so much what anybody thinks,
Yeah.
or else I wouldn't be doing this. Obviously, the people that matter, I care what they think. But the people who don't matter, I go, I'm going to help you later when I get more time to come back and say, that was not a good thing for you to say or do or whatever. Or you're on the wrong path or whatever that goes down those lines. As my slider camera is arguing with me up there, but I'm here for a mission, man, and I just feel like God left me on this planet to help
To do something.
help people
To
realize
do something other than complain.
Right, that's the easy thing. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody can do that. What didn't happen today? My dog peed on the floor. I'm like, literally, this gal told me, she's like, my dog's gonna pee on the floor. I gotta go. I'm like, let me tell you a story, and you won't feel so excited about your dog might pee on the floor, but we all get stuck in those situations, and I had to decide to bounce back versus complain the rest of my life. I started doing that for about a year and a half and realized that was not fun.
So
Do
is
my
this
thing.
something you're giving me for being on your show?
Absolutely.
I can take home.
I will certainly give you that one to you. Let me hold
Look
this
at
up
this.
for everybody. This ring, Tom, he has the real ring.
I have
everybody.
I wish I'd have wore the real ring. As soon as I got out of the car, Barb said, "Did you wear your ring?" I said, "Oh man, I left it in." I keep it down in my man cave at home. It's obviously a cherished item for me.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's probably worth.
And thanks very much
quite a
to
bit, too.
Tom Stillman and the Blues people for including me in the ring distribution back in 2019. But this is a nice one here too.
Yeah, that is not fake. That is a real ring made out of real, and I say this all the time with the Cardinals rings, real, not fake, real cubic zirconia.
It's got some heft to it.
But it's interesting the way they make these replica rings now. I had one that had
Ryan
my name
O'Reilly's name on the
on
side
it. O'Reilly, yeah. He worked with one of the companies I worked with. I got to run into him at the Cardinal game. Like, I love your
So where did this come from?
So you go to this new thing called, I think this was eBay, or it might have been an online thing. And people ask me, "How do you get rings, cowboy?" I'm like, "I got connections through eBay." But some of these rings are given to me by fans who like what I do. This one's Semi-Pro Baseball Hall of Fame I got put in after my coma. But
This is
but
pretty authentic looking.
that's what I say. They look like, I would be confused if they weren't the real ring, except I'll hold this up for everybody with a camera. I can zoom in on that one up there. Tom, I'm going to put it in front of you,
Okay.
if it's all right, because that camera right there. But this camera, oops, where am I going to get there in front of it? There it is. I can zoom in if I, but that looks pretty legit. The difference you can tell is that they have like crystals or diamonds or something on the blues,
Yeah.
not just painted, and it's real, some kind of blue emerald or something. I guess what's a blue sapphire?
Sapphire. Yeah.
Okay. And so that adds a lot of money and value to what the real one's worth.
Well, I would tell you what mine was supposed to be worth, but I'd rather keep that to myself.
Yeah, I know you could price these things. Just go Google
Yeah.
search 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, whichever one, whichever team. And then they got different levels depending on where you're at in the organization sometimes, and I don't know all that. But
Yeah, I think the players got one that's like twice the size of the one I got, but I'm still grateful.
oh yeah, as I say, it's just neat to be even associated with all of that. Another funny story along those lines: my dad was in bad health. My mom says, "You're going on this vacation." I don't like to take vacation. I got lots of work to do. She says, "You're going, and we're going on a cruise, and you're going." And I said, "Well, the Cardinals are in the middle of the season. I can skip a few games, and the Blues will certainly be out of the playoffs by then."
Yeah.
And not certainly, but I mean statistically. And I got another joke about that. It reminds me of something I got to share with you that we put up there. But I can do this, and then they go further, and then they go further, and I end up like we're going to be back the day of from the cruise if they have the celebration. They won the Stanley Cup while we're on the cruise ship, and there was a bunch of Blues fans, and there was a bunch of Bruins fans. And then we get there, and I'm like, okay, if they do it like most people do, they have it the next day, I think. And then they had it 2 days, or if they have it 2 days later.
Yeah.
And they did it the next day, so I was still out of town. And one of my friends was in the parade with his gear, and I could have been riding along in the parade with him, but
Yeah.
it would have been fun.
I wasn't in the parade. I was at the arch for the celebration under the arch at the end of the parade because
they probably had you on stage and stuff.
yeah, I was on stage and introduced the players as they came on stage, and so that was a lot of fun. I mean, just looking out over the arch grounds and seeing 500,000 people is a pretty amazing
I heard
experience
it was the
by
party
itself.
of the year, yeah.
Yeah,
How the
I would
decade-
have liked to have been in the parade, but it was more important for the people involved with the show down at the arch to be there before the parade got there.
Yeah,
and
I'd say there's
do a little practicing
logistics
and
that they
such.
gotta take
yeah,
care of.
yeah.
with regard to that. All right, so I'll show you this. Let's talk a bit about the Blues, and then we'll finish up here, I think. But we cover a lot of things I didn't get to talk about. But we actually cover. I'm looking through my questions. Like we kind of talked about that. Or we kind of talked about that. We kind of talked about that. But I'll tell you the funny story. Tell me, and this kind of ties into how important are the fans to an organization like the Blues? Not like the fans that spin and blow air. We're talking about the fans that are in the
Well, the fans are everything for the organization. I mean, come on, the Blues for a long time were just another team in the league, but for whatever reason they connected with the fan base here in the St. Louis market. The fans have been loyal at times when really there was not a particular reason to be loyal to a team that wasn't very good or a team that was struggling along promotionally and so forth. But the fans have loved the players and the people that they put on the ice from day one. And the fans now are still that way. And we, I don't know what we would do if the fans weren't as loyal as they are and keep coming to the games and buying tickets and supporting all the things that the Blues do.
Yeah, that's why I say it was neat to see recently. Coach came back. He's coaching for Toronto now, right?
Yeah.
And they
Greg
did kind of a
Berube,
little.
yeah.
Berube, he came back and they did kind of a little thank you tribute. He's here. He's like coaching for the other team.
Yeah.
But that was kind of neat. And what he did, he took over. That'll lead into what I've got here actually. So on the wall, everybody, and this is not a ton of fun stuff out there I get to do, but there's a fair amount, but whatever. But this on the back wall, there it is. There's Tom's website again. Here is this little article. I didn't realize it got put out there, but this is tied into this story because here it is, Channel 2, Fox News. The Towel Man, the Cardinal Cowboy, cheers the Blues onto a 7-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And at that point, there's a video here. I put it up on my YouTube, and they went ahead or Facebook. It's the world famous. You can't hear it, but well, let's go Blues, eh? And I'm wearing my Blues jersey. Coincidence? The Cardinal Cowboy and the Towel Man are here, and the Blues win? I think not, right? So that's the kind of positive energy we get to do.
Ron Beckley, he's quite a guy too. The Towel Man. He's been doing that for many, many years now, and people tell me all the time they wouldn't know they're at a Blues game if it weren't for the Towel Man and some of the things that I do on the PA system too. So
that guy's a legend.
Yeah.
We've become buddies. And during that, I think it was that game. It might have been a prior game, and I was saying to him, I only go to 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 Blues games. I'm trying to stay focused because a lot of time, and I got to put a lot of time over here. It's hard to do both. But so we got a guy. He does a great job. And I said, am I getting some interference? We're good. I'm touching my wire there. But I said, Ron, it looks like it's going to be another tough season. We're down and out. But let me pass on some of the Cardinal Cowboy power on here and see if this works. And I went up to him and did that. I had all the rings. And he's like, yeah, Cowboy, let's hope for the best. And literally, we're like, okay. And then they fired their coach at the time. Forget his name. And they brought in Berube, right? And then they turned around and won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, did this power that we shared have something to do with that? Maybe from a perspective. I don't know. I doubt that. But, I mean, those are the kinds of mindsets you need to have. And, boy, the Blues now have become – where I was guessing going with that is that the fact that the Blues at times have not been very good. They were talking about moving to Saskatchewan. Were you part of the program back when they were doing that?
I started not too long after that all happened. Harry Ornest, people might remember, the owner that came out of the woodwork from California and bought the team right before it was supposed to move to Saskatoon.
Saskatoon.
Yes, well, it's in Saskatchewan,
okay.
so you were right.
Okay.
Harry Ornest, bought the team, kept it in St. Louis, and ran the team on a shoestring budget for quite a while, but eventually wound up getting it back on its feet and selling the team to local owners again. And that's kind of when I got involved back in '86, '87, and I've worked for 5 ownerships since then. And but getting back to your point, yeah, the team might not be in St. Louis had not an angel with some money come along and decided to keep it in town.
Well, and those guys are great. There was another kid I got to work with. He was a big Blues fan, and I went in and worked with him. And then his mom came back years later and said, do you know why my son made it another 6 years? Because at that time he'd passed away and the cancer all came back. And I go, I don't know. Did they do some special treatment? And she says, and I'm going to start talking about this because I want people to reach out to me because I've had some effect that worked, and I want to help people. Like, how many people have had whatever and then it went the wrong way? And if I can help a little bit. And she goes, the reason he lived was because you got in his face and told him to fight. And thank you for that, because I had 6 more years with my son. I'm like, whoa. I ended up being a pallbearer at his funeral, and I'm standing next to Alex Pietrangelo, and I don't know the players so well, so I didn't realize that. But Alex had come there to be a pallbearer too, because this kid was a big.
I'll be darned.
And I'm standing there, and somebody leans over me and goes, "You know who you're standing next to there, cowboy?" And I'm like, "Who am I standing next to?"
Alex Pietrangelo.
I'm like, "Holy cow, the captain of the Blues!"
Yeah.
And the owner of the Blues,
Tom Stillman.
Tom Stillman walked past. They said, "There's the owner of the Blues." That's the kind of guys these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up to a little kid's funeral.
Well, I think that's why the fans have continued to be loyal, is that the ownerships over time have understood that there was a genuine love connection there between the Blues and the organization, and the owners and the people that run the team. You know, Chris Zimmerman these days, the CEO, and some of the other front office people, they go way, way out of their way compared to most other ownership groups and leadership groups to connect with the different parts of the fan base, and individuals make up the fan base, so they connect to those individuals like that.
Amazing. Great because it has such an impact. How many kids don't make it as a professional hockey player, but they learn amazing skills by being part of a team and learn how to win, how to lose, how to compete, how to practice, and all those things you gain from playing sports. And that's why I'm such a strong advocate that you better play some kind of competitive sports at some level, or sports even if it's not competitive, because you learn so much you don't get anywhere else.
It's life lessons. Yep.
Exactly. As we finish up here, I could go on for another couple hours. I would love to, but we all got things we got to do. I don't want to take any more Tom's time. But quick story, and this will tie into what I'm going to finish up with. As an intern at Channel 2, and this is back when they were switching over from ABC to Fox, the little building right there, right by the arena, if you remember that.
Yeah, sure.
And we would just walk over to the arena. That's where they were located. And I'd be there I used to carry the sticks. And ultimately, I got to do some interviews. I interviewed Kenny Schrader, and there's Steve Savard and Trey Wingo. And he and Trey Wingo ends up on, and I was the guy from ABC, and Trey Wingo ends up on ESPN, and Steve Savard been around forever in St. Louis. And I decided to take a different path. I didn't want to go to a small town and do that whole thing. I used my computer skills and end up at Anheuser-Busch, et cetera. But I'll never forget, as I forget right now, but I did that whole internship, and it turned into a lot of fun. But I got to interview a guy by the name of Brett Hull.
I've heard of him.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
And I'd put in, actually, I was done. I'd graduated, but the guys liked me enough to where they said, keep coming back in here. You really help. You're doing things to get things done. I logged when field goals and touchdowns happened, and just say, go to this point in the tape. Back used to all be tape. And go to those points, save them. Like Mark Curtis, Pete Peterson, Jeff Cawley. And I said, they said, well, you're, where was I at with that? Oh, interview Brett Hull. And so my buddy goes, hey, man, I would love to have an autograph from Brett Hull. And I'm like, well, I'll get a lot of trouble if I ask for that. Yeah. But in my mind, I'm like, I've been working a lot extra. I've been doing it, whatever. And it's for a buddy of mine who's in the military. And the guy who saw me do this didn't know all that. And so I won't say his name, but it was kind of, he's a well-known writer. And he says, so I go, by the way, Brett, would it be okay if you sign an autograph for my friend who serves in the military? He's over in Okinawa right now. Yeah. And he's like, of course, man, we'll do that. Somebody saw me do that. They called the station, and they're like, your intern's asking for autographs. I'm like, man, I'm trying to help a kid.
You're in the media. You're not supposed to be doing that sort of thing.
Right. And I learned that lesson quickly, but I was like, anyway. But the point there was then also, I mean, these guys really do great work to help our community. Yeah. Before and after, during their career, during and after their careers. Who's your favorite, and how you're talking more about your show now, and how you're going to really get to bring us to connect with those guys?
Well, the idea is to, as I said before, preserve the stories and the legacy of the players who've really connected over time with the fan base of the Blues, and a lot of, I led off with Kelly Chase. A lot of people know he's dealing with leukemia right now and battling that, but he tells just a wonderful group of stories on my first podcast, and hopefully people get to hear that. Up second will be Keith Kachuk, That Brett Hull guy you talked about, he's going to be on at some point. He's promised me. We haven't nailed down a date on it yet, but and you know, Al McInnes and other legends of blues hockey over time. Scotty Bowman, the legendary Hockey Hall of Fame coach. We're going to have him on hopefully, and Susie Matthew, who I mentioned a little earlier, who is one of the first female executives in major sports, who worked for the Blues and hired me. Hopefully we have her on as well, and you know, it's a storytelling podcast basically, and hopefully we'll tell a few stories that people hadn't heard before.
Well, I think it's going to really help our community to stick together and learn more, and really, because there's so many of these athletes that are just almost untouchable because they're so famous, kind of thing. But St. Louis isn't really that way with most of our athletes, I think.
No, and Bruce Affleck with the Blues Alumni Group has helped me, you know, sort of get this thing off the ground and make it sort of an official effort of the Blues Alumni Group, and I appreciate his help in doing that. And it's going to be a lot of fun for me, and hearing a lot of great stories from some of these people.
Well, keep up the great work. Anything I can do to help you, literally, just send me a text, call me, whatever you need, and I always answer unless I'm in the middle of an interview.
Be careful what you ask for.
And I just enjoy doing that stuff,
Yeah.
and then if it works out always to do that. So, but before you leave, though, you told me you do this for any average Joe, even me, right?
Well, you're not an average Joe.
Can I get a autograph?
I carry these cards with me. It shows on one side the Winter Classic at Busch Stadium.
Okay.
Back in 2017-18. They put up on the board how many consecutive games I had, and it's just a small photo of that from the press box. On the other side is a headshot of some guy that I know.
Guy.
Some guy that I know with a
part-time
microphone.
model too, I guess. Right?
And so if people ask for ask me to sign something at a game, I'll usually pull this out and
there it is, and we're witnessing it live. This is his actual autograph, everybody.
Best always is usually how I do this, and then scribble my name so it looks something like Tom Calhoun.
I do autographs as Cardinal Cowboy for kids a lot of times, and it's just a big C, a D, and an L.
Yeah.
That's Cardinal, and the Cowboy is C and a Y. It's like
most autographs you get from athletes anymore, you can't tell what it is.
Yeah, or they have people trying to say, is that authentic or not? Because you can tell what they've done.
Well, they usually sign their name or scribble something and then put their uniform number on there that kind of makes it look like.
Sure. David Freese told me the trade secret, you sign on the numbers because that doesn't fade. It's a thicker, harder material.
Right.
And those are what a lot of those guys do.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff they do. Thank you, Tom. It's just taking the time and sitting down with us, and we're almost up to a full hour now, so I can make 2 shows out of this potentially.
Cool.
All of which I'm going to give you.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it very much, and love what you're doing for the community and on television, and anything I can do to help you, I'm on it too.
I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you've enjoyed another rendition of the Your Little Castle show. And I might cut this up into 2 shows because we're very close to that right now. I'll have to edit a little bit in to get some commercials or sponsors or whatever with that. But great stuff and great feedback. Keep doing what you do. Obviously, you've got this you got the system down. You've been doing it for
as long as I'm healthy enough to show up, I'll keep showing up.
Well, at a certain point, I mean, I did a little thing with the Cardinals. They put me up to be the super fan of MLB, and they actually put me up twice. I didn't win it the first time. Second time, it was me and the Towel Man and a guy by the name of Ernie Hayes.
I heard of him.
Did you know? How well did you know Ernie Hayes?
I didn't know him that well. I ran into him a few times. He was actually doing the organ when I first started doing the PA announcing at Blues games, and we used to have. This is how primitive it was back when I first started. I used to have a button on the desk in front of me, and I would push the button to tell Ernie, don't play after the next whistle because I got an announcement I have to do. And so he wouldn't play. And if I didn't push the button, he knew it was free for him to go ahead and play the organ.
Let's go, Blue.
Yeah.
Just an awesome experience. We did find decent home opener tickets for a fair price. My girlfriend is a lover of all sports. which is great for me. It makes it
Sure.
easier. So
Yeah.
she'll tell me, this is coming up, Cowboy. You're going to be there? I'm like, oh, this is going on. Are you going to post about that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. And Amazing Trace, amazing-trace.com. We got a little
There
website
you
for
go.
her. No,
Good for you.
She does a lot of Airbnb stuff that's done really, really well. And she can help you with that. Or when we went to the Bears game, tell you how to set up a trip. She'll just tell you how to do it. We ended up going to the Bears game for an incredible value that I didn't realize, but I taught her how to find tickets on StubHub for a great deal. I get tickets when I want them from the Cardinals connections that I have, but I don't like to bother them all the time if it's a $15 ticket and I could still be in the lower level, right?
Right. Sure.
If I know how, because I know how to shop for them on StubHub. But when there's playoffs and home opener, I reach out to some of my friends. Those get expensive. But the Cardinals have just done such an amazing job. The Blues have done such an amazing job. And now we get to like integrate those. They integrate well. Those two work well together.
Yeah, there was a time when, they kind of kept at a distance from one another and
Right.
didn't help promote one another. But now I think the two managements and the two ownerships have a handshake agreement like, hey, what's good for us is good for you. And so they, cooperate that way. And that's
Some of the
great.
famous. I get people to come up to Cardinal Cowboys here. I wear a Cardinal Cowboy thing. I wear a Blues jersey.
Yeah.
But they got the towel guy. That's his turf. That's what he does. He's great. And I'll show up and people identify me. But man, they get Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright. All the guys show up there, and it's really neat to see them really engaging. 'Cause
Yeah.
that takes the time and energy. These guys are worn out. They played late. They had to get up. Woke up quick. But like noon. But they were up till 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
And they had somewhere to find time to sleep and eat and do everything else. So their time is well spent, and I appreciate that they do that, and awesome stuff that they do. So I was going to mention then, is it true then? Last as we're done here, I got another minute to fill if we could. But
Okay.
Ernie Hayes was the only, who is the only person to play? And I just gave it away. Who is the only person to play for the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Blues?
Yeah, you just mentioned his name. Ernie. Ernie was Ernie's the guy.
And it's just awesome. And I think the Cardinals and Blues, I've become friends with Dwayne Hilton. And Dwayne is the main guy. They've got another gentleman. I met him. He's a great kid. He's doing a whole story now about how he's kind of revitalized his life. But look him up. Who's the other organist you guys have? There's
Right now we've got Jeremy Boyer.
that's it, Jeremy Boyer.
Yeah.
And he's really done some cool revelations of getting healthy and everything.
He's changed his entire physical appearance. He started out as a little pudgy guy back in early 2024. Got a personal trainer, and now he's ripped like
Buffed,
you wouldn't believe, and really changed his whole physical outlook and mental outlook, I think, to a degree too.
Yeah, no, I talked to him a little bit, and he kind of recognized me. We do our thing, and then Dwayne Hilton. Dwayne, we're going to have on some point if we can do that. Dwayne invited me to come up and meet him before a game at the Cardinal game. I've been so busy I don't do that, but we did. He runs some music store out in the county that does a great job. All those guys are doing something within our community to make a difference. So now we're up to 28 minutes, and like I said, we'll just make 2 shows out of this. I'll give you all to take a look at. Stay tuned for more, everybody. Again, this is the Your Little Castle show, where we're highlighting the local leaders who make an impact and a difference on our little planet. And we hope you get to do some of that too in your world, and you can if you just go out and do it. All right?